Dusk comes early during Boston winters. As the glass buildings in the upscale business district began to glow golden, Beth Anderson sent her final email and closed her laptop. As finance director, her days were long, especially during quarterly closing periods when she often worked late into the night. "Ms. Anderson, working overtime again?" Maria, a member of the cleaning staff, peeked in. Beth stood up with a gentle smile. "No, I'm heading home early today. I need to deliver my mother's medication." As she left the office, a cold wind caressed her cheeks. For the 3 years since her father Robert's death, Beth had continued to support her family. Most of her salary as finance director at a major pharmaceutical company went toward her mother Martha's medical expenses and her sister Cassandra's graduate school tuition. While getting into her car, Beth recalled the morning's events. She had found an old safe while organizing her father's study but gave up trying to open it when she couldn't figure out the combination. While fixing her makeup in the rearview mirror to hide her tired expression, Beth let out a deep sigh. When she arrived at Martha's house, the porch light was dimly lit. Before opening the door, Beth hesitated for a moment. Recently, conversations with her mother had become increasingly formal. Deep down, she harbored a growing suspicion that she was viewed as nothing more than a financial provider. "Mom, I brought your medication." Upon entering the living room, she found Martha sitting on the sofa watching television. Even after her husband's death, Martha had maintained her elegant appearance. Her designer blouse and pearl necklace radiated the same sophistication as always. "Oh, Beth. You're late," Martha said, glancing at the clock. "Cassandra is studying at the library. Her master's thesis is highly regarded by the professors at Georgetown University." Beth silently handed her mother the medication and a glass of water. Martha's face always lit up with pride when discussing Cassandra. Cassandra had been given the best environment to study law. Beth remembered how she had given up attending Harvard Business School for her career, instead attending a local university to care for her ailing father and support the household. "Yes, that's wonderful," Beth smiled. "I've started going through Dad's things. I found an old safe in his study." Martha suddenly appeared tense. "A safe? What kind of safe?" "A small one. But I couldn't open it." "I see," Martha said, seeming relieved. "Your father was always secretive. It's probably just old bills or something." The conversation ended there. Beth headed to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. The groceries she had bought for her mother remained mostly untouched. Instead, takeout containers from expensive restaurants lined the shelves. "Mom, we need to be careful with money," Beth said quietly. "My salary alone has its limits." Martha frowned. "Your father promised us a comfortable life. And yet, he left us nothing." That was a lie. Robert had left insurance money, but Martha had spent it all within a few months: European travel, new furniture, a luxury car for Cassandra. Beth tried not to blame her, but anger swirled inside her. Her dreams, her life, savings for her future, everything had been sacrificed for her family. "I'll come back tomorrow," Beth said. "Let's have dinner together this weekend." Martha nodded vaguely. "If Cassandra has time." On the way home, Beth pictured her father's face. He had been a gentle, wise man who always encouraged her and believed in her talents. "You're a special child, Beth. You'll be the pillar that supports this family," she remembered him saying. When she reached her apartment, Beth's eyes fell on the cardboard boxes containing her father's belongings. The safe sat on the table. Small and old, but solidly built of metal. She tried the combination again. Her father's birthdate, their wedding anniversary, their old home address, none worked. Just as she was about to give up in exhaustion, an idea struck her. The combination of her father's and her own birthdays. With a small click, the safe door opened. During a morning meeting, Beth's phone vibrated. Cassandra's name appeared on the screen. Her sister rarely contacted her on weekday mornings. After a moment's hesitation, Beth excused herself and left the conference room. Cassandra? What's wrong? Beth. Mom has. Cassandra's voice trembled. She had a heart attack and was taken to the hospital. We're at Massachusetts General Hospital now. Beth felt the blood drain from her face. What? When? An hour ago. I was in class, so the hospital's call was delayed. Cassandra began crying. I'm scared, Beth. Can you come? I'll be right there. Upon returning to the conference room, Beth briefly explained the situation to CEO George Hamilton. He was understanding and said, "Family comes first. Take as much time as you need." Beth thanked him and hurriedly left the office. As she drove, Beth's mind was in turmoil. She had last seen her mother 2 days ago. She had seemed fine, but had Beth missed something? Martha was being treated for high blood pressure, but she was supposed to be following her doctor's instructions carefully. Beth stopped at a florist and selected a bouquet of pink carnations and lilies, her mother's favorites. After paying at the register, she rushed to the hospital. She parked and checked her mother's room number at the reception desk. Room 307, the receptionist said. Family members are already there. In the elevator, Beth felt a tightening anxiety in her chest. Was Martha all right? What would happen next? How much would the medical bills be? How much would insurance cover? Worries surfaced and disappeared in succession. Reaching the 3rd floor, she passed the nurse's station and turned right down the hallway. Room 307 came into view. Holding the bouquet close, she took a deep breath and reached for the door. The moment her hand touched the door, she froze at the voices coming from inside. It was Cassandra's voice. Don't give big sister anything, okay? She hasn't done anything anyway. Martha's low laughter followed. We'll let her keep functioning as our ATM, and I'll give the assets to you. Really? Cassandra's voice rose. But what will Sis say when she finds out about the money Dad left? Don't worry. Beth is a good girl. She'll do anything for family. She works so we can live in luxury. As long as we make her think we need her, everything will be fine. Beth's hand fell away from the doorknob. She stood there, clutching the bouquet. Her breathing became shallow, and her head began to ache. It took several seconds to comprehend the meaning of what she'd heard. 3 years. For 3 years since her father died, Beth had sacrificed her own life to support her family. And now, she had discovered her mother and sister's true feelings. To them, Beth was merely an ATM. Footsteps approached. A nurse was walking down the hallway. Beth quickly made a decision. She gently placed the bouquet in front of the door and turned on her heel. Nodding slightly to the nurse, she hurried toward the elevator. When she reached the parking lot, she jumped into her car and closed the door. For the first time, tears streamed down her cheeks. Waves of anger and sadness washed over her. She gripped the steering wheel tightly and rested her forehead against it. Why? She questioned silently. What have I been doing all this for? It had started raining. The raindrops trickling down the window seemed to synchronize with Beth's own tears. Her phone began ringing. It was Cassandra. Beth ignored the call. She wasn't in any condition to talk right now. On her way home, Beth's mind was in turmoil. Had there really been no inheritance after her father's death? Martha and Cassandra's conversation suggested there was property she knew nothing about. It seemed strange that her father would have passed away without telling her anything. When she returned to her apartment, her eyes fell on the safe still sitting on the table. The night before, after opening the safe, she had been too tired to check its contents before falling asleep. Now, she suddenly felt a strong desire to know what was inside. With trembling hands, she opened the safe and peered inside. On top was an envelope with Beth's name written on it. Breaking the seal, she found a letter written in her father's distinctive handwriting. Beth took a deep breath and began to read. To my beloved daughter Beth. If you're reading this letter, I am no longer in this world. And you've found my old safe and solved the combination. I believed in your intelligence. Recently, I received a severe diagnosis from my doctor. Pancreatic cancer. Terminal, with not much time left. I debated whether to tell you, your mother, and Cassandra, but I didn't want to burden my family with unnecessary worry. Especially you, who always put family first and sacrificed yourself. I didn't want to add to your burdens. Beth, you're like me. Strong sense of responsibility, caring for others, prioritizing family over yourself. I've always been proud of you for that. On the other hand, Martha and Cassandra, they think differently from us. I don't mean to blame your mother. She has her own way of loving. But I know you've always been the one making sacrifices. Actually, our family has assets that aren't widely known. Land in New Hampshire that the Anderson family has owned for generations, and a small investment trust one started when I was young. Only my old friend and lawyer, James Thompson, knows about these. His contact information is on the business card enclosed with this letter. Beth, I've created a legal will leaving these assets to you. I wanted to entrust everything to the one who continues to protect the family. I always believed that was you. Thompson knows all the details. Please contact him. Lastly, I've enclosed my diary. Reading it will give you a clearer understanding of my thoughts about our family. I love you forever. From Dad. Beth's hands trembled, and tears blurred her vision. Her heart constricted at the knowledge that her father had been ill and had understood her so deeply. She took out the business card from the envelope. It read, James Thompson, attorney at law. Next, she opened her father's diary. It began with recent entries and worked backwards in time. The last few months' records contained words of anxiety about his illness and concerns for his family's future. April 15, 2019, the test results are in. The moment I saw the doctor's face, I knew it wasn't good news. 6 months to a year left. I can't tell Martha, Beth, or Cassandra yet. Especially Beth, she would worry too much. She always tries to take care of all of us. I can't burden her with my illness too. Turning the pages, more personal entries caught her eye. December 25, 2018, Christmas. Martha asked for expensive jewelry again. Her spending habits are getting worse every year. Cassandra seems to be following the same path, which worries me. Meanwhile, Beth gave me a hand-knitted scarf. She mentioned she had diverted her bonus, which she had been saving for herself, to cover Martha's medical expenses. How can I address this imbalance? Older records described her father's company's growth and the investments he had secretly made. March 10, 2010, the value of the New Hampshire land is increasing. I'd like to put this land inherited from my grandfather to good use someday. When Beth graduates from college, I might advance this plan with her. She would understand. I'll keep it secret from Martha. If she knew, she would immediately try to sell it for cash. June 18, 2005, Beth's high school graduation. Her speech was wonderful. I look forward to her future. Martha wanted to buy her an expensive car, but instead, I established an investment trust. I'll give it to her someday. She's smart and will use these funds effectively. After finishing the last page of the diary, Beth sat quietly for a while. She felt she could see her family more clearly now. Her father had been aware of her self-sacrifice. And he had worried about her mother and sister's spending habits and calculating nature. At the bottom of the safe was another envelope. Inside were detailed property inventories and a family tree. There were also deeds to the New Hampshire land and investment trust statements. Additionally, she found a draft of an informal will written by her father. It indeed contained language about leaving all property to the one who continues to protect the family. Beth took out her phone and dialed the number on the business card. After 3 rings, a calm male voice answered. Thompson Legal Office. Hello, Beth said nervously. This is Elizabeth Anderson, Robert Anderson's daughter. There was a moment of silence on the other end. Ms. Anderson, Thompson's voice became warm. Your father told me to expect your call. It's been quite some time. I recently found my father's safe. I read the letter inside. I see. Let's meet and discuss this. Could you come to my office tomorrow, perhaps? After arranging a time and ending the call, Beth looked out the window. The rain had stopped, and thin sunlight was beginning to break through. She picked up her father's photograph and smiled at it. Thank you, Dad, she whispered. You've shown me the way forward. The next day, Beth parked in front of Thompson Legal Office downtown. 14th floor of a modern office building. After giving her name at reception, she was immediately escorted to a private room. James Thompson was a gentleman in his mid-60s with a warm smile and sharp eyes. He extended his hand to Beth. Finally, we meet, Ms. Beth. I was a longtime friend of your father. Beth took out all the documents she'd found in the safe and spread them on the table. Thompson began examining them carefully. While these documents are insufficient as a legal will, he chose his words carefully. They are important evidence of your father's intentions. What do you mean? Beth leaned forward. Actually, Thompson removed his glasses and said, your father created a formal will. I was present as a notary. We need to compare its contents with the documents you've found. Thompson continued gravely, something troubles me. After your father's death, your mother proceeded with some paperwork as the executor. I sensed several inconsistencies during that process. The documents you found might confirm my suspicions. Beth's heart raced. You mean, my mother? I can't say for certain, Thompson said cautiously. But it's worth investigating. If you'd like, let's retrieve a copy of the original will that was notarized. Beth slowly nodded. Please do. And, Thompson said while holding the diary, based on this evidence, let's prepare to take action to protect your rights. Outside the window, the city's hustle and bustle continued. Beth took a deep breath. For a long time, she had sacrificed herself for her family. But she felt the time had come to stand up for herself. 3 days had passed since Beth's meeting with Attorney Thompson. During that time, she hadn't gone to the hospital. She hadn't responded to Cassandra's numerous phone calls and messages saying, Mom is worried, why aren't you coming, and, we have important things to discuss. Beth now understood very well what those words meant. At her office desk, Beth stared at her father's photograph. You knew me well, didn't you, Dad? She whispered softly. In the photo, Robert wore a gentle smile. The phone rang. It was Attorney Thompson. Ms. Anderson, we have the investigation results. His voice was serious. I've confirmed the original of your father's formal will. And there are clear discrepancies between it and the will your mother submitted. Beth's heart raced. What are the contents? In the original will, your father indeed designated you as the primary heir, as the one who protects the family bond. The New Hampshire Land, Investment Trust, and most of the company's shares were to be inherited by you. He left your mother certain living guarantees, but the main property management rights were definitely given to you. As the one who protects the family bond. But in the will my mother submitted? According to it, all property would be distributed equally, but in reality, all management rights were with your mother, and she could distribute at her discretion. Both the signature and date had been changed. Beth leaned back in her chair. Are you saying she forged it? We have evidence to assert that. The notary date records don't match the actual document date. Also, we conducted a handwriting analysis of your father's signature. Without a doubt, changes were made afterward. Beth took a deep breath. So what should we do? We've gathered all the evidence. The diary and letter you found, a notarized copy of the original will, and handwriting analysis results. If you wish, we can initiate legal proceedings. Looking out the window, Beth was silent for a few seconds. Mom is still in the hospital, right? Yes. I hear her condition is stable. I'll go to the hospital today, Beth made her decision. Would you accompany me? Of course. In the afternoon, Beth and Attorney Thompson arrived at Massachusetts General Hospital. Beth's heart was beating rapidly, but her expression remained calm. 3 years of self-sacrifice and betrayal. And now, the time had come for the truth to be revealed. Are you ready? Thompson asked as they exited the elevator. Yes, Beth answered briefly. I'll do what needs to be done. When they reached room 307, the door was half open. From inside, Cassandra's voice and her mother's gentle laughter could be heard. Beth knocked on the door. The conversation stopped, and Cassandra's face turned toward the door. Beth. You finally came, she exclaimed joyfully. But her expression quickly froze when she noticed the suited man standing behind Beth. Who is this? Attorney Thompson, Beth said calmly. Dad's lawyer. The color drained from Cassandra's face. Martha, lying in bed, suddenly turned pale as well. What does this mean? Martha asked in a weak voice. Why do you need a lawyer? Beth entered the room with Thompson by her side. Mom, I'm glad you're feeling better, she said. I heard you had a heart attack. Yes, it was a mild attack. The doctor says I can be discharged in a week, Martha answered, unable to take her eyes off Thompson. Beth opened her briefcase and took out documents. The other day, I opened the safe I found in Dad's study. Martha and Cassandra exchanged glances as if communicating wordlessly. Inside were a letter, a diary, and an inventory of assets Dad left behind, Beth continued. Furthermore, I found Dad's real will. What are you talking about? Martha raised her voice. There is no real will. There's only one document your father signed. That's not true, Mom, Beth accepted a file from Thompson and spread it on the bedside table. This is the notarized copy of Dad's formal will. And this is the altered will that you submitted. The date and signature have been changed. Stop talking nonsense. Cassandra shouted. Mom would never do such a thing. Thompson stepped forward. These are the handwriting analysis results. We also have the notary's testimony. The original will was signed by Mr. Robert Anderson in my presence, but changes were made later. Martha's complexion worsened. She sank deeper into the bed. You don't understand, Beth, she finally said. We needed the money. Your father wasn't thinking. Leaving everything to you, what would happen to me and Cassandra? Dad didn't leave everything just to me, Beth said quietly. Your living was guaranteed too, Mom. But it's true that the main property management rights were given to me. As the one who protects the family bond. But Big Sister is always working and... Cassandra began making excuses, but Beth interrupted. I work to support you. Most of my salary has gone toward Mom's medical expenses and your tuition. Beth opened a black folder and spread out bank statements. These are the amounts I've paid for you over the past 3 years. In total, I have almost no savings left. The room fell silent. Martha and Cassandra exchanged glances, at a loss for words. Please, Cassandra said tearfully. We're family. Let's start over. It was a misunderstanding. Martha looked up as well. That's right, Beth. We're family. We need to support each other, no matter what. Beth looked at them with cold eyes. What about the conversation I overheard at the door? We'll let her keep functioning as our ATM, and I'll give the assets to you. Martha's face froze. Cassandra was at a loss for words. It's too late, Beth said quietly. Mr. Thompson, what happens next? The lawyer cleared his throat. We'll file a petition with the court to execute the original will. Simultaneously, we'll request the return of assets that were improperly obtained. Beth, please, Martha began to cry. What are we supposed to do? That's up to you, Beth said, straightening her back. I'm no longer your ATM. She nodded to Thompson, and they prepared to leave the room. As her hand touched the doorknob, Beth turned back. Cassandra, you should continue studying law. You might need to defend yourself. Walking down the hospital corridor, Beth felt as if she had been released from a 3-year burden. The sky was still cloudy, but it felt as though the sun was trying to break through somewhere. I can finally reclaim my life, Beth whispered to herself. Thank you, Dad. One spring, a year later, an old farmhouse standing on a hill in New Hampshire had been given new life. Freshly painted white exterior walls, bright windows, and a sign at the entrance that read Anderson Family Center. The land once owned by Father Robert had now become a facility for the community. Beth stood on the front deck, gazing at the scene with satisfaction. Inside the center, educational programs were being conducted for children from low-income families. Using her father's inheritance this way was Beth's interpretation of his words, the one who protects the family bond, extending it to the broader community. Beth. A young woman rushed over with documents in hand. This month's donations increased by 30% compared to last month. We also gained 3 more corporate sponsors. That's wonderful, Sarah, Beth smiled. Sarah was the first staff member she had hired and was now the center's operations manager. After winning in court, Beth had reclaimed her father's inheritance and gained control of the company. Unlike Montgomery Furniture, under the new name Anderson Company, she had shifted toward environmentally friendly furniture manufacturing. The company was performing well, and part of its profits went toward operating the center. In Boston, Martha and Cassandra were walking different paths. Forced to move from their luxury apartment to affordable housing, they were compelled to live modestly. Martha's health had gradually deteriorated, and she had become distanced from her former social circle friends. Cassandra had continued studying law but couldn't pass the bar exam and was working as a clerk in a small law firm. Occasionally, she sent emails to Beth seeking reconciliation. Repeatedly using the phrase, "because we're family," she implicitly sought financial assistance. However, there were no replies from Beth. Local newspapers featured articles about Beth's success and social contributions. Martha read an article titled, "Elizabeth Anderson, an entrepreneur embodying the balance of business and social responsibility," from her hospital bed. It described how Beth had created over 100 jobs through Anderson Company and the center, contributing to the local economy. And now, Beth had a new family in her life. Her relationship with David, whom she had met as a volunteer at the center, brought her true happiness. As a university professor, he always visited the center on weekends to teach children the joy of science. This is the true meaning of family, Beth whispered to herself. In the center's living room, children were working on crafts, laughing. David was surrounded by them, explaining something enthusiastically. Her father's old watch was a comforting weight in her pocket. Found in the safe, it was now Beth's precious charm. She occasionally took it out and remembered her father's words, the one who protects the family bond. Blood alone does not define family. Love, honesty, and mutual respect are the foundations of a true family. Beth now walks with this lesson in her heart, alongside her new family. The center's bell rang, announcing the end of the afternoon program. Beth rose from the deck and headed inside with a smile. Her life was more fulfilling than ever before.